I was thinking you'd get up and tap dance for us. Or
Oh, yeah.
you're going to put on a show, yes?
Listen, this world is my show. You should know that by now.
Well,
Okay, we're going to call to order the Board of Adjustment
Yeah.
for May 26, 2021, 7 p.m. Roll call.
Mr. Urbowski,
Still here.
Ms. Turner is out, excused. Mr. Burris,
Here.
Mr. Eisner,
Here.
Ms. Rich,
here.
Mr. Davis,
Here.
Ms. Simon is in the audience.
Okay, now we go to the quasi-judicial announcement and the swearing in of speakers.
This is a quasi-judicial proceeding where the Board of Adjustment acts in a quasi-judicial rather than a legislative capacity. At a quasi-judicial hearing, it is not the board's function to make law, but rather to apply law that has already been established. In a quasi-judicial hearing, the board is required by law to make findings of fact based upon the evidence presented at the hearing and apply those findings of fact to previously established criteria contained in the Code of Ordinances in order to make a legal decision regarding the application before it. The board may only consider evidence at this hearing that the law considers competent, substantial, and relevant to the issues. If the competent, substantial, and relevant evidence at the hearing demonstrates that the applicant has met the criteria established in the Code of Ordinance, then the board is required by law to find in favor of the applicant. By the same token, if the competent, substantial, and relevant evidence at the hearing demonstrates that the applicant has failed to meet the criteria established in the Code of Ordinance, then the board is required by law to find against the applicant. Are there any members of the board wishing to disclose any ex parte communications or conflicts of interest this evening?
No. No.
Seeing none, anyone wishing to speak this evening, if you could please stand and raise your right hand to be sworn in. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? I do. So sworn.
Okay, we go to agenda item number 3, application number 21-30, variance to reduce the required front and side yard setbacks, location 533 Dork Court. Let's go to the staff presentation, please.
All right. Okay, so the property is located off of Dork Court. It's outlined here in yellow. This property, as well as all surrounding property, is located within the R100 Single-Family Residential Zoning District. The applicants are looking to construct a new pool on the property, and they're here today requesting a setback variance for both the front setback as well as the side setback. For the front, they're proposing a 21-foot setback, as they're required a 25-foot setback. For the side, they're proposing a 5-foot setback, and it's required to have an 8-foot minimum setback. This is an aerial look at the property. There's an existing single-family home built on the west side of the property towards the water. There's an existing detached garage on the eastern portion of the property. The applicants are looking to put the pool in this area here in front of the existing home. They have indicated that the property is served by septic, and that septic system is located between the existing home and the garage in this location. It's important to note that the Utilities Department has indicated that this property can receive sewer service, and at some point in the future, they'll likely have to be connected to that. This is zooming into the corner of the property where the pool is proposed, and this is the site plan provided by the applicant. This is showing the setback areas and then where the pool is proposed to encroach. For the front setback, again, they're looking to have the closest point at 21 feet from the front property line, which is this line right here. And then they're looking for a side setback of 5 feet, which encroaches into the minimum 8-foot setback, which is right about here. One additional consideration is the Land Development Code does provide specific setbacks for the side and the rear for both pools and for pool screen enclosures. For a pool screen enclosure, the minimum setback is also 8 feet. And there's also a minimum separation required between the water's edge of the pool and the pool screen enclosure, which is 3 feet. So to meet the ordinance, you'd have to have at least 11 feet to have an enclosure and a pool on a property. Again, the front setback is dependent on the zoning district location. There's not a specific setback for the front for a pool or pool screen enclosure. So in this case, it's 25 feet. The site plan does not indicate a pool screen enclosure with this proposal. So if the board does choose to approve this request, staff does recommend placing a condition that a variance would not be allowed for reduced setbacks for a pool screen enclosure in the future. And with that, this is your criteria, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, do we have any questions of staff by the board? Yes, Mr. Davis.
I was wondering, I was looking at everything, and I was wondering, is there any possible way Mr. and Mrs. White can possibly redesign the pool?
Well, we'll go to the applicant in a moment. I'm talking about questions of the staff right now.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. Mr. Eisner? Nothing? Ms. Rich?
No.
So I do have a question. This plot of land just north of the site, is that a buildable lot?
So I didn't look specifically at whether or not it's buildable. From a zoning perspective, we would look at the lot size, so the area, the width, and the depth to make sure it meets the R100 requirements. If it meets those from a zoning perspective, it would be buildable. Now, there may be other limitations to the property, environmental, wetlands, whatnot, that actually would prohibit it from being developed, but that information I don't necessarily have.
Who currently owns that property?
I can look that up for you, but I don't have it.
I don't see a number on it like these other lots are numbered, at least not on the image that I'm looking at.
I can look that up for you if you'd like.
Okay, and they were notified, yes?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And certainly the lot directly to the right.
Yeah, we notify 500 feet out, I believe, Kim?
Yep.
Yes.
And nobody's responded?
No.
Okay. Any other questions of staff? Okay, then we go to the applicant. This is your chance to give a presentation. Please come to the microphone, state your name and address for the record.
My name is Nancy White. This is my husband, David.
Hi there.
Hi there.
Welcome.
Thank you. We moved to Tarpon Springs in February from the cold, cold state of Michigan, and we're enjoying ourselves very much.
We love it.
It's a lovely town. It's a lovely piece of property. It's a gorgeous bayou, and we're very happy we made the decision. I did receive a letter from the committee or the staff, and basically saying there are 5 provisions that we had to meet to get a variance, and that they felt, the staff felt that we had met 3 and not met 2. So I will be addressing those 2. And I also we went door to door to our immediate neighbors and asked them what they felt about the variance. Gregory, I'm not sure what how his last name is pronounced, Learis on Riverside Drive. His property abuts ours, and he has signed a statement saying he has no objection to granting a variance. George Papadopoulos also abuts our property in a small way, but it does abut our property. He was also happy to sign this saying he has no objections to a variance. Our immediate next door neighbors who have a pool are in Austria right now visiting aging parents, and she is out of email reach, and I was not able to get a statement from her, but we did have a discussion, and she and her husband, Christian Enos and Christian Zeller, have no objections, but you'll have to take my word for it.
She'll provide that later. She'll be happy to, any kind of statement you want or form signed, she'll be happy to sign. They'll be happy to sign that.
And David Bobo, who lives across the dead end of Doric Court, where we are, and he's on the other side of the vacant land. We talked to him about the pool. Actually, he asked us because he got a notice, and he has no objections other than he wishes we would come and use his pool. So that would be a little awkward, in my opinion. So we did not meet according to the...
Do you want copies of those letters? Should I hand those to you?
Yes, please.
We
You can
can-
take them to the,
You can actually take them to the board secretary, Kim,
Oh, right.
on the end.
that side.
Oh, thank you.
Watch your step. There's some bolts sticking out of the floor there.
So we did not meet criteria 2, which reads the conditions or special circumstances peculiar to the property, and it is a peculiar property, I will readily admit that, have not been self-created or have resulted from an action by the applicant or with prior knowledge or approval of the applicant. You admit, your committee admits that there are special circumstances, but apparently, let's see, part of it is resulted from an action by the applicant, which would be me, or with prior knowledge or approval of the applicant. When we applied to build the pool, we in no way thought that the area under consideration right now was in any way, shape, or form a front yard. This is our house. And it looks out on a driveway. And then it looks from the front. This is our house. This is from our house from the front porch. And it looks at the east gate. We considered that the front. So when we made the application for the pool, we in no way thought that the
Start there.
You can pass them down here.
that the pool would be coming over a setback of 25 feet. I mean, we had no idea. So this is a picture of the area, approximate area where the pool would be. And as you can see, it is mostly along what you are calling a side fence. On the other side of the fence, as I mentioned, Doric Court is a dead-end street. There's a swoosh in our gate, in our fence.
Thank you.
That was made into an arc to accommodate a cul-de-sac that was never paved. We were told, and I don't know if this is apocryphal or it's this second or third or fourth hand information, so for that I apologize, but we were told that there had to be room for a fire truck to turn around, and therefore the fence couldn't follow the property line. It had to go in an arc for an easement. And this is the view from outside the fence looking toward the arc of the fence,
Which we mow.
which we maintain that property because, of course, it is our property from, you will see in a survey.
Thank you, sir.
This, again, is where the property dead ends, and this is what is outside the side. In other words, I think it's obvious anyway, that we will in no way be bothering anyone by building over a few feet toward that fence. There's nothing on the other side of that fence. And we're not, and there's mangroves there which cannot be removed, which was a big selling point for the house, by the way. So, so in statement number 2, which we have been told we have not met, I don't believe that it was an action that was in contradiction to your desire to have setbacks that encroach on neighbors or that would be distracting to drive-bys or pedestrians or anything like that. There is nothing there. There's no road, there's no sidewalk, there's no pedestrians. They do turn around sometimes right there at our gate. Number 3, literal enforcement of the requirements of the City of Tarpon Springs Comprehensive. I'm just going to skip ahead here. And the requested variance is the minimum variance that would make possible the reasonable use of the property, and you believe we have not met that. The reasonable use of the property is we have no desire for the pool to dominate our front porch area, which is a lovely area. There's landscaping there we don't want to take out, and therefore the pool could go into that landscaped area, but there's beautiful palm trees and lovely tropical foliage we're enjoying very much and totally unfamiliar with coming from Michigan. And if we were to redesign the pool, then it would become smaller and kind of scrunched over more toward the front of our property, and like anybody, you'd kind of want it to be over to the side, which we believe it does in its present proposed location. It only goes over the side of our porch, maybe a few feet. The front porch that would be on the pool side, it's a large front porch. So we're hoping that, having explained these things about our process and our story and wanting to have a pool like good Floridian, that we have met those proposals. In coming tonight, we obviously did some research and we talked to some people. And one of our neighbors who got a postcard, Nick Zimbalist, gave us a lot of advice, and he would like to address you, if he may, concerning our issues. He's a civil engineer and he's very familiar with the city. I think the city's familiar with him too.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, my name's Nicholas Zimbelis. I'm a lifelong resident of Tarpon Springs, actually second generation. This was our junior high school. So, yeah, I had the privilege of serving the city as engineering executive of the firm that's still doing practice here for the city of Tarpon Springs, Cardinal. Well, my firm at the time was called TBE Group, which we sold. But as being a neighbor and within the 500-foot, I met my neighbors. They came knocking on the door and asked if we had any objection. I told them no. But they also shared some of the concerns, and the report that you did, excellent report. So I said, well, just let me take a look at it, and I'll give you my perspective as a retired civil engineer. So as I read the report, makes sense. Some of the things that I have a question mark in my head is, and I think you made a good point about the 25-foot setback. It doesn't really, there is no criteria. I don't see it. Because when I referenced the municipal code, muni codes, in 3602, it does clearly spell out the setbacks as it relates to a pool, as it relates to the property lines, but doesn't mention the front or the front line. And, you know, they're representative of 8 feet. If you got an enclosure, 5 feet, 3 feet, but no reference to 25 feet. But then it does do a good job of saying pool on waterfront lots, which that is a waterfront lot, to go to 5105, section 5105. And when I look at that in section E, it does make reference to a 15, the setback requirement shall be 15 feet from the center of the seawall cap, and I think they were relating to the back lot line, but that number 15. But 25 doesn't come anywhere. I haven't seen anything in the Muni Code that talks about 25 except for the front line. And Ms. Keene, do you have the property survey? Or if you don't,
This portion zoomed in.
yeah,
is
well,
that
that's a good one.
Okay.
I'm going to focus on that one for a little bit. As an engineer, I view that property line that's running northwesterly, that's a side property line. Would we agree?
Yes. North.
And so what I see there is a side property line that has different degrees of boundaries. So that, in my opinion, is a property line that protrudes northeasterly, then a point of reference turns and it changes a bearing that goes around the proposed cul-de-sac that's not there, and then it goes from there to another point. So if you go to the property survey, the furthest east property line, we'll call that the front property line. Would you agree on that, Ms. Keene, that easterly property line that's running north and south, that would be called a front property line because the seawall is the rear property line. And what's interesting is that the front property line, the detached structure from the property survey is at a setback of 25 feet. So that 25-foot setback applies to a front property line. So if we looked at that 25-foot setback, I don't know how you came up with a 25-foot setback at a point that's considered not the end of your property line. So that's just an observation, if you can see that. So if that had been two pieces of property, and where that first arc is, where the beginning of the cul-de-sac in the middle, if you had taken, and that was a property line, and struck a straight line down, I can understand you saying that it's a 25-foot setback from there. But that's not a property line. That's just a delineation of a change in boundaries. So I want to just respectfully say that the 25-foot setback seems excessive, and it doesn't seem to be appropriate because it has already been applied to the detached structure, which is at a 25-foot setback. So that's just one observation and one ask that you consider that. The thing that I really observed is that that's an enclosed piece of property, 6-foot fence wall, 6-foot concrete wall. And so from a perspective as an engineer looking at safety and health risk, this is a very enclosed piece of land. You're not going to see encroachments. It's a gated entrance. So from a protection of why they don't want to have a pool enclosure is because it's pretty well secured in a way that if anyone encroaches, they're trespassing. And so from safety and health, I think that the pool where it's located is safe. Then I looked at the pool itself, and again, I didn't have a actual design schematic drawing. I only had an aerial overview. So I just want you to all consider that the pool that actually, in my opinion, encroaching the side variance is, see the little arc of that, you know what I call this diagram of a pool? It's a guitar with an awkward stem. So the lap portion of that pool is not in violation of the 8-foot variance. In my opinion, the only variance that is required, again, based off of my opinion that the 25-foot setback is the east property line, is that 5-foot aerial that Ms. Keene, you or your staff have put. And that little arc that you see, that's 2% of the pool as far as the encroachment. And I kind of estimated, because I don't have a scale, but that's about a 5 to 7 foot length with about a 2-foot arc at the high point. So that's the only point of encroachment, in my opinion, as it relates to their variance request. I just think, in my opinion, if I was a neighbor, I have no objections to it for those conditions. And I think for the kidney shape, the concern I have when I read the report is that they do support relocating, they do support attaching to the sewer system. That's a good thing. But I don't recommend taking now the septic tank out and opening yourself up to exposure to environmental hazard, because one of the suggestions I think I read was that they consider relocating the pool over to that side, which would be surrounded by buildings, limited sun, limited exposure. But my more concern, as I told him as an engineer, I don't think you want to start going into an old septic tank that's been there many years and now start to remove that and expose yourself to some environmental conditions that you have to make, which will end up being costly. And my last comment about the vacant land that's owned by the trust, it is true, I looked at it, there are environmentally sensitive, federally protected mangroves there. I don't see that being a buildable lot. So that's my request. I urge or encourage that you consider these things and possibly consider a variance for them. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. So we're going to ask the board, do you have any questions of the applicant? Let me go to this end first. Mr. Burris, go ahead.
Yes. On the boundary survey, you show the pool approximately at the location you have it, and it's passing the corner of the house. When you come in to this drawing, it comes to the corner of the house. How do you explain that? Is the pool going to be adjacent to the house, or is it going to reach the corner of the house?
I can only say that the sketch was done as a preliminary drawing by the pool company way back in January, February, when we were first starting to look at the house. We closed on February 22nd. So there are, you know, they communicated, the pool company communicated, provided the explanations and the drawings, and I can't speak for them, but I can speak for the fact that I'm not going to let them just put the pool anywhere. We're going to protect our landscaping. We're going to make sure that it's in a spot that will be aesthetically pleasing to us and to anybody who comes in our property.
I understand that. On the request for proposed setbacks, you have any other official documents such as a survey that will be a part of the whole property?
I do have a survey. The
Yes,
pool
that
isn't,
will include
the pool is
location
not
of the pool.
superimposed on the, they took a part of the survey and put their schematic where the pool was. We can certainly.
Are you referring to the same one I'm talking about?
I can't see it.
No, that, may I answer your question?
Yes.
That's a property survey.
Okay.
So in accordance with the building department, they will be required to end up creating a set of construction drawings, design drawings that will show the boundary of the properties, which is what's in your right hand.
Okay.
And then they'll take an actual design of the pool and put that on the set and sign and seal those and certify them to the city as a building.
Okay. Will the pool, you may know, will the pool require a deck outside, all around it?
Yes.
Okay, if you want to have to put a deck, don't you need an additional setback for the deck?
I believe the setback was to the water's edge.
Yes, in the ordinance to the
I
water's
can
edge.
speak to that for
Can
you.
you speak to that, please?
Yes, so for a pool deck, essentially anything that's under 30 inches does not apply for setbacks. So theoretically, they could have a pool deck that goes up to the property line. The setback requirement is from the water's edge of the pool to your property line.
I see, okay.
Thank you, Ms.
Thank you. That's all I have. Thank
Mr.
you.
Davis, any questions?
I'm all set.
You're good? Ms. Rich?
I was just wondering, welcome to Tarpon Springs,
Thank
first
you.
off, and thank you for being here.
Thank you.
I just was wondering, when you were working with the pool company and you were working with them to design, is it like a prefab structure that they can't adjust, you know, like in the kidney shape, and I'm no pool expert, but in the kidney shape where it kind of goes over a little bit, would it be problematic for them to design it where it didn't come over, just in that part that the gentleman, the engineer, was talking about, that one side? Just curious.
It's not a prefab, it's custom
Concrete.
designed,
Concrete
and they
place.
could do whatever we tell them to do, and you tell them to do. However, we didn't want, based on where trees are and bushes and landscaping now, this is where the pool company thought it fit the nicest and still gave us enough room to have, Nancy and I both have heart conditions, and you'll see that's a lap pool going down on
Right.
the side, and then that's other area for grandkids to swim in and to have more room. And the pool company thought that was really the size that we needed to fit there.
Because I think, while I applaud you in wanting to do that, I think where I interpret the staffing report in saying that it's caused, you know, not where it is self-caused, is somewhat because you do control the design of that pool, could possibly make a pool still fit in that property boundary. It may not be exactly the way that drawing has it, but I think that, you know, that's where I'm struggling to.
I think may I answer? I think it's a lot like if you were designing a home, and would you want to design the home the way the city is telling you to design it? Or would you want it to be designed based off of your criteria of what you expect? And I think that's a good point that you're making. When I look at that design, and again, I still have that question mark in my head about the 25-foot setback, because it's not written that 25 setback exists. It's an interpretation that just got created. When I look at what is factual, it's the 5-foot request. No, I know, but the 5-foot request variance to the 8-foot. And to me, I think that's a reasonable thing that I would be saying to them is, look at that part, because that is a fact that it is encroaching into that 8-foot by 3 feet. Can you do something about altering that to do? But I would say, please consider your decisions that until there's, in my opinion, a clear reading of that 25-foot setback, those two kidney shape, if you slice that off, that pool's gonna look not too desirable. And you can't move it any closer, because when I looked at the property, there's palm trees there, there's shrubbery there, and I think you now start to take trees away, which we don't wanna do that. So that's, but I think you make a good point. It's a matter of preference, I think, but they should be able to, in my opinion, your pool contractor, to take and create some alteration to the arc to make it meet the 8-foot variance. And now you don't have a variance there. I mean, you don't have a non-compliant variance.
Okay, Mr. Eisner.
Thank you. Ms. Keaton, could we have a clarification on the 25-foot first?
Yes.
Before we even go further asking any questions?
Yes, so where I can agree with the applicants, it is a different property, but how the land development code is written, this property, I'm gonna try to, can you see my mouse okay? Yeah. Okay, so this arc to this point over here is considered your front property line. And that's because Doric Court is the public right-of-way, and that's where your front is determined. So yes, the house is slightly oriented eastward, but the front property line is this entire area. So that's where you have to measure it from. So the setback requirements for a pool in the land development code specifically provide setbacks for side and rears. There is not a front setback for a pool per se in that section, because typically the pools aren't going to be in your front. So with those situations, we have to go to the zoning district requirements for a front setback. And in the R100 district, it's 25 feet from your front property line. So that's where the 25 is coming from. So yes, it's a different property, but that's why it's considered the front. It's because Doric Court's right-of-way is that whole, this area.
And Mr.
Does that
Eisner,
help
may I
clarify?
add something to that, though?
Hold your thought for a second, thank you.
Sure.
I have a purpose to where I'm going with
I
this.
like that.
So would this then be a non-conforming or a unique property to what we're accustomed to seeing?
Yes.
It's not a non-conforming lot. It does meet the lot standards in terms of size, depth, width. So it's not non-conforming in the definition of the land development code. It's unique in the fact that Doric Court doesn't have a cul-de-sac at the end of it, but we still observe it as public right-of-way. That is a right-of-way line. Theoretically, the city could go in there tomorrow and put a cul-de-sac in that area. So it's treated like there is a street there.
But even if they did that, that would have no effect on the applicant's pool.
Correct, but we just need, by we, I mean the land development code is set standards, 25-foot minimum setback from your front property line. So that's all that we can go off of, but yes.
But what I'm hearing is a maybe. I'm not hearing a definitive. Is it definitively that what they're saying, is it 25 feet in the
It is
code? That's what
definitively
it's saying?
25 feet minimum setback from that line, from the arc over to the eastern property line. That is the requirement for that zoning district.
Okay. Well, I need that
No,
clarification.
that's fine. It's confusing.
So now I would like, I'm happy to hear you.
Then if it is defined as a front line, then why is the easternmost property has a setback of 25 feet?
Just because the structure has a setback, so I can look up the minimum setback for the side for you,
Yeah.
but just because the structure is built at 25 feet, it doesn't necessarily mean that's the setback. We just provide minimum requirements in the land development code. So potentially, say the side setback is 10 feet, they could have built the garage at 10 feet, but it was built at 25.
Well, the side setback codes are 5 feet or 8 feet?
I can look
Yeah,
specifically for
would be
that
good to
district
look,
for you.
Because if we confirm that the side was built at 25-foot setback, then it's a side setback, and it's the front yard.
Well, that changes the whole case.
Well, not
That's
to
why
mention,
I'm-
over the many years that we've been doing this, we've had the definition of the front of the house, many different places. And so, just because they're saying the property is the front, certainly that's not the front of the house. I mean, you could see that very clearly, so there seems to be some leeway here if you look at it from that perspective.
See,
From a legal
Let me finish and
perspective,
then I'll-
there is no leeway. I would be remiss if I didn't say for the record. From a legal perspective, there's no leeway. Your criteria are your criteria.
Well, I have not said anything about the criteria. I'm merely talking about the
just
front of
here
the
to remind
property and the
you.
front of the house.
Just to answer the question for the side setback, so I'll just read each of the setbacks for the R100 zoning district. The front, again, is 25-foot minimum. The side is a minimum of 10 feet with a total of 25 for both side yards, so they need to total 25. A side street, if this was a corner property, is a minimum of 15 feet, and the rear is 30 feet.
Any more questions, Mr.
Well,
Eisner?
yes, I just don't know who do you want me to address? Okay. Well, why I'm asking these questions, because it determines how we have to make our decision. We're quasi-judicial, we don't make law, we decide according to what is given to us. So I kind of am looking at this, and my first question I have to ask, I appreciate, first of all, welcome to Tarpon. We love having you here. We love the town. This pool is gigantic. I just want you to, at least for what I see, it is a huge pool. And is there any way possible to make this slightly smaller? Because if it doesn't fall within the guidelines of what we're given, it's hard for us to give you a variance on something like this without a good reason. And I'm reading the reasons that you're putting down under the variance, and I don't really see that we can, at least that I can give you a variance for it. So that's why I was asking this question. So my only other thought would be to see if you could make this pool possibly a little bit smaller. You made up a good point about not taking out the septic system, because that would have been possibly a recommendation you hook up, which eventually you have to do anyway to the sewer system, but yes, you don't want to disturb the septic system. That would be a nightmare. So you don't have much, and when I said the pool is large, I've seen a lot of properties here in Tarpon Springs, and for Tarpon Springs, that is a large pool. I understand you want it to be a lap pool. I'm looking at this with your, what I would call your bowling alley into your heart-shaped pool here. You're almost at 50 feet, the way I see it.
The intent, so that Nancy can swim her laps. That was the idea, without having to turn around. If it's only 25 feet, you have a lot of turning you have to do.
Could you do me a favor? Go up to the mic so that, yes. Because I want to make sure everybody hears what you're saying. That's okay.
Yes, that was intentional, because we're trying to make it the size, it's not an Olympic pool, which would be
Right.
25 meters or 75 feet, but we tried, it's 45 feet, which gives her enough room to swim a decent lap before she has to turn and head the other way and go back. That was the idea, was to try to get that in the 40 to 50 foot, and that really doesn't push anything other than the trust property next to us, which is, in our understanding, will not be developed because of the mangroves that are there. And actually, if you don't allow the 25-foot variance, or so that it can be 21 feet instead of 25, because I think we only want a 4-foot difference. in length. It pushes back into the middle and pushes the pool very much closer to the house.
Well, I'm not telling you to put the pool closer to the house. What I'm asking you, because I understand that there's mangroves and whatnot, but according to the rules and regulations that we're bound by, we cannot just ignore that. Either you make all the criteria, or the reason you can't make the criteria is for a real necessity. It's not a necessity, and I hope you understand, a necessity is not that the pool is going to go from 50 feet to 46 feet because your wife cannot wants a 50-footer.
No, that's not a problem. It's
Right. But that's
shrinking
what you're
that
saying.
part. But shrinking the part down, that you called the heart part of it, that would put it very close to the porch and very close to the house and take it out of the sun. It would make a big difference.
Well, it's 4 feet that we're referring to. That's all it is. This little piece here by the 5 foot is negligible. I just don't, as I go through the criteria and the reasons that you're needing it and wanting it, they're just not good enough to.
Would you approve the variance from the fence, the 8 foot that we're talking about, and scale back 4 feet?
We're not allowed to actually play let's make a deal, honestly. We have to, you would have to alter the application, and then we would have to decide on that, if I'm correct. But
And we've done this board has done this before. If the request ends up becoming for a lesser variance, you can consider that at the hearing today, but the applicant can just not ask for a larger variance. And asking for a lesser variance, that then cuts against the criteria that it was, the original request was the minimum variance required in order to make the project work. So keep that in mind. But if there is if the applicant chooses to move forward with a lesser variance, you can hear that this evening.
Okay.
But otherwise, amending the application would call for a separate hearing.
Okay.
So they can reduce.
Please.
By all means, I'm looking to try to help you out.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Appreciate that.
The reference to the 25-foot in the Land Development Code for the, R100, is that for detached dwellings?
So typically that's, typically you would apply that to like a house or your
house.
building. However, it really applies to any structure that's on the property. So pools, because we have setback requirements, is the interpretation that would have to adhere to the front setback.
Your report recommends the developments, and you identify 2 references to code. And you also say district intent, and the single-family residential districts are established to provide for detached dwellings in a variety of districts. Then you go on to reference the development standards. You apply the per section 25.02, which is the 25-foot setback for detached dwellings. Then you even go specifically say per section 3602, which is what I was quoting in 3602. That's all about the pool. That's the pool requirements and setbacks. So I don't think the pool is a detached dwelling.
Right, I see where you're coming from, but we do have pool setbacks, like you said, section 36.02, and it specifically talks about your side and rear. Because it does not talk about the front setback, we have to default to the zoning district setback requirements. So that's why we look back at that section 25.
3602 is about specifically the code, but it also has a section of 3602, which is about pools only and enclosures. So there's a lot of sections in that section, but that one is about the pool. But the one referencing 2502 of the Land Development Code, which you're referencing about the front setback, as I interpret that, it's for detached dwellings, and unless you can show us that it's a difference.
It doesn't typically only restrict to detached dwellings. Typically, yes, that's what you're looking at, but in this case.
Or any other dwellings?
I'm sorry?
Does it say, or any other dwelling?
It just, in R100
Dwelling is a
district, the
living.
minimum front setback is 25 feet.
Yeah. but
That's how it's
for
written in
living.
the
A
code.
dwelling is defined as living, not as a pool. You don't dwell in a pool.
It's just, the setback requirement is 25 feet for the front.
So if there's a compromise here for,
Do you want to get up to the mic if you want to speak?
Yeah, we can go to, if you have no further presentation, we can go to public comment. And we can come
Hi.
back to you.
My
I
name
should
is
be
Rhea,
sworn in.
and I'm the real estate agent that sold this beautiful home to these people.
Okay.
They came from a very cold area, and they are loving it. It's true. She does do laps. That was one reason. Like the backyard, it was totally out of the question. You're right there. They couldn't put a pool of any sort, but she wanted a lap pool. But they also wanted another pool. Now, what I'm going to say is there a compromise? Are you saying to just shrink the heart size down just a little bit? Is that all you're asking, or the long part?
I'm never going to ask somebody to change the pool size, but if they did change the pool size, it would fall within at least a closer, we wouldn't be at 4 feet.
What would you consider?
need a variance. They wouldn't need a variance if it was within that.
Well, if you gave up 4 feet, you would need a variance. But all I'm saying to you is there anything, when somebody comes before the board and they have a 6 inches or a 1.5 feet, we might be able to say, oh my God, let's try to do that and see if when you're at this, it makes it very hard because you're not falling under the criteria at all. I mean, I don't know how best to explain that to you. Right now, the answers that we have to the criteria, it's just not an acceptable variance.
Mr. Eisner is basically saying that it's a self-created issue, and that an 18.5-foot pool is kind of big.
Correct.
You could reduce it a little, maybe X amount of feet, then it wouldn't be so big, and it would fall within a reasonable amount of, overage.
Well, the criteria either met or they are not met, regardless of the size of the pool. The only thing that the
Correct.
size of the pool would factor into would be whether or not it's the minimum variance required to complete the project. To piggyback on what Mr. Eisner said, and to your point, and to remind the board, this board can't compromise and doesn't have the ability to negotiate. This board has people on it that really do want to try and help applicants in this community, and being the bearer of bad news, I've had to tell them on numerous occasions that is not their job. They have a very difficult job. If the applicants cannot meet the required criteria, based on the evidence presented, then they are not entitled to variance. Variances are the exception, not the rule. And so with that, they need to consider the evidence that's presented.
That's what, in a kind way, I was trying to explain to you. I
So
cannot.
you're like, I understand kind of what you're saying, but you were saying like a foot or a 1.5 feet or something like that. But the 4 feet is just totally out of the question to get.
We go back to let's making a deal, and that I can't do.
Okay.
But
All right,
if the applicant wants to make it possibly smaller, I don't know.
Like a pool very much. It's hot. We really like a pool, please. And if you need to cut off 2 feet and make it a 2 feet variance, that'd be terrific.
We have no power to do that. We cannot cut off or add or any of that.
We would like to make it smaller by 2 feet. And adjust the variance request respectfully.
Okay.
So for clarification, it
yes.
sounds like they would like to propose a front setback of 23 feet, which is 2 feet less, right? 2 feet less than the required 25 foot. So they're reducing their original request which they are able to do at the meeting, and you can determine that. So they're looking to have the closest point of the pool being 23 feet away from their property line, if that clarifies.
So if I'm to understand this, where they're on the property line where it says 23 feet, that would no longer be in the picture. And the 21 feet would now be at 23 feet, correct? Correct. What would we be doing on the 5-foot side?
The 5-foot is encroaching.
Is it fair and reasonable to request the 3-foot from the 5-foot variance on the side at that one point?
You hear him? Oh, boy. Could you step up to the mic, because yeah.
I'm sorry, I apologize. I don't do this that often because I'm retired now. Is it possible to also request that the 5-foot variance be granted? Can it be specific? I mean, because it's not the entire the side of that property.
So the setback is measured from the closest point
Yes.
to the property line. So right now, they're requesting that distance to be 5 feet.
Yes.
So the only option they have to be heard tonight is if they were going to say, well, we'll actually be 6 feet from. So they have to have a lesser variance, if that helps.
Thank you for the.
They couldn't
that.
they couldn't necessarily say, instead of 5 foot, we need a 3 foot. They can't increase it.
No, thank you. I was trying to see if it could be more prescriptive. Can the variance be given at a specific point where that arc is and not the entire side?
So we would treat it, I'll probably have to develop to you with that one.
Yeah, if you're going to be encroaching into the side yard setback, you're varying the side yard setback for that specific project. So I see what
Prescriptively.
you're saying. You're saying if the variance is granted, you want it, can we restrict it to just that little
Yes,
minimum
ma'am.
arc going in
Prescriptively
there?
put it right there and saying that that's the only variance you're getting. You're not doing anything more. You're going to maintain your 8-foot variance and just prescriptively apply the variance at that little. And we can get a survey if you wanted that to be
Well,
done.
the variance, as the applicants have requested it, based on the evidence that's presented and based on the variance that will be granted, would be based on these schematics that have been submitted.
Yeah.
That would be it. So that variance isn't going to go all the way to, say, the backyard or anything like that anyways.
So it would just be
And
for that.
that's what's going to go to the building department
Okay.
for permitting.
Can that be considered in addition to that, what they said about the front yard?
That's already part of the application.
Yes. Sorry.
Okay, so I want to ask the applicant, you have said that you do not need a screened enclosure, correct?
Our neighbors don't have screens, and yeah, that is correct.
So you're good with the mosquitoes, the no-see-ums, the whole thing?
Yes.
Okay, because the city, I believe, is requesting that if we were to give them,
It's at the discretion of the board, that's just a recommended condition.
That this
Just
is your
because
recommended
If
condition.
someone in the future, whether it's this property owner or a future property owner, wanted to put a pool screen enclosure on the property, if the pool was approved with a variance, they would need a variance again for an enclosure. Yes,
got
so
it.
that's why we recommend it.
just double check.
Yeah.
And you're cool with that, right?
Yes, we are.
Okay, so where are we? We ready to go to any further public comment? For or against? Okay, seeing none?
I do believe, are we still on Zoom today?
We didn't do it for the Board of
Yes,
for the
right, this
Board of
meeting was
Commissioners.
advertised prior.
before.
Ah,
This meeting was
Mr.
advertised prior.
Jump. Do we have anybody online?
At this time, we do not have anyone in attendance.
Do we have any emails?
No,
Any letters?
no. Aside from these that were just handed in.
Ah, okay. So then I guess we're going to go for a motion. Yes, please, Ms. Rich.
Just point of clarification. Now, am I correct that the request for variance has been amended at this meeting by the applicants?
Yes, we'll have the city say exactly what we're looking at.
Thank you.
Okay, I will do that. The applicants are proposing a front setback of 23 feet, which is 2 feet less than required for the front setback, and then a side setback of 5 feet, which is 3 feet less than required for a new pool.
Okay, we're going for a motion.
I would say motion to approve.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call.
Mr. Davis?
Yes.
Ms. Rich?
Approve.
Mr. Eisner?
Yes.
Mr. Burris?
Yes.
Mr. Urbalski?
Yes. Good luck to you. Congratulations. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
May I shake your hands?
COVID and all.
Against CDC rules.
You can wave, you know.
Thank you.
We'll be over to swim, you know.
When
we
all
get a
this is
chance.
over, we'd like to invite you all to come sit, have some lemonade on our porch. and
That's
swim in our
very
pool if
kind,
you
very
would.
kind.
Thank you
Thank
very
you. Have a
much.
great night.
Have a good
Appreciate
night.
your
Thank
time
you.
So
very
now we're
much.
moving
Thank
on
you.
to item number 4, application number 21-52, variance to reduce the required rear yard setback, location 316 West Lemon Street. We go to the city staff presentation.
All right, I'm already up there. Okay, this property is outlined again in yellow. It's at the corner of Pineapple Street and West Lemon Street. It's zoned R60. A majority of the properties around are also R60. There is some multifamily zoning to the west. The applicants are looking to construct a new pool on their property as well as a bathhouse that has an attached porch. They're here today to request a rear setback variance for the proposed bathhouse. The R60 district requires a minimum 20-foot setback, and they're looking for a 10-foot setback. This is looking at the provided site plan. There is an existing single-family home on the eastern portion of the property, and the blue area represents the proposed location of the pool, and then the red area is the proposed bathhouse. The shaded-in area is the interior space of the bathhouse. The non-shaded area is the covered porch. Because the porch is attached to the bathhouse and has a covered roof, it's considered one structure, so we look at it as a whole. Again, the rear setback is required to be a minimum of 20 feet. They're proposing 10 feet. There is a 20-foot wide alley along the north side of the property. And then, again, this is another situation where you look at the front setback of the zoning district for the pool, and that's required to be 25 feet, and the pool does meet that setback. The Land Development Code does provide reduced setbacks for bathhouses. However, they only apply to bathhouses that are less than 200 square feet in size. If this proposed structure did meet that size limitation, the side and rear setback would only be 5 feet. The proposed bathhouse is just under 1,400 square feet in size, and again, that is counting both the covered porch area and the interior space. This property is located in our local historic district, and it did go before, the current proposal did go before the Heritage Preservation Board back in April. They did receive certificate of approval. On that certificate of approval, they did indicate that in able to get the 10-foot setback, they would have to go through the variance process. When reviewing the application, the Preservation Board did look at historic guidelines and design guidelines. I've pulled out a few of them that are applicable to this proposal. One is that new outbuilding should be located to the rear yard. The Heritage Preservation Board specifically noted this, that they were in favor of a reduced setback because it pushed the proposed accessory structure back on the property and made it more subordinate to the primary structure, which is the historic structure on the property. Two other guidelines, the building setback shall conform with historic or predominant setbacks along the street, and the scale of a new garage or outbuilding shall be compatible with both the street and alley environments of the historic district. When they were reviewing this application, they did note that there are some existing accessory structures that are oriented towards the alley and close to the alley right-of-way line. A few of them are shown here, highlighted in orange, one of which is an existing shed that's on the subject property. And here are your standards, and I can answer any questions.
Okay, I'm going this side. Any questions of the city staff? Okay. Ms. Rich.
Just clarifying, on the agenda, it had mentioned West Lemon, but on the application, it is East Lemon, is that correct? Just want to make sure for our minutes, we're dealing with East Lemon? Okay, because in
West
your
Lemon. The staff report says east.
West.
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 It's west.
Okay. Thank you. I just want to make sure when we write it up, we.
Thank you. And we did properly notice around that property.
Mr. Eisner.
Yes. Ms. Keen, does the existing covered patio and existing woodshed currently have a permit on it?
So those are existing structures that have been there for quite some time. I believe that the existing shed is, I believe it's a contributing altered structure, acknowledged by the Florida Master Site File, so that's something that's been there for time and legally non-conforming.
So is that no?
Does it have,
No, does that mean no? It has no permit on it?
oh, I don't know if, I can't say if it has a permit or not a permit. I thought you were speaking to the setback
Oh, okay.
difference.
No, I'm asking that because it looks like it's on the property line, and we normally have 5 feet from the property line.
Right, right. So that's why I was mentioning this is a structure that's been there for quite some time, potentially prior to setback requirements, whatnot. But it's not, I don't know if it has a specific permit or not.
Okay.
1950.
1915, he says.
Any more questions of the city staff? Okay, we're going to go to the applicant. Please come to the microphone, state your name, address. We're happy to hear what you have to say.
Jim Wilson. I'm
Nice to
the
meet you.
builder.
Okay, sir. What would you like to tell us?
Well, bottom line is we followed all the guidelines for the pool, the historic district. We are just matching the alley that goes between Pineapple and Shattuck. There are a few residents that are on the property line or within that 10 feet. To the east of him, there's a 3-car garage that's within that 10 yards, which is over that 200 square feet. We are just matching the area, nothing more.
Okay. Do we have any questions of the applicant? Mr. Davis, Mr. Boris?
No, I do not.
Ms. Rich, any questions of the applicant?
No.
Mr. Eisner? Okay, do we have any, one in the audience that would like to speak on this issue? Please, come forward.
Yes, I do. My name's Bill Sprecher. I'm a neighbor.
Okay, what was your name, sir?
Bill Sprecher. I'm at 405 West Lemon, right on the
Okay,
corner.
thank you.
Okay, a couple things that need to be brought out, again, probably, is when the Historic Society or the board they put a lot of emphasis on moving the structure back. It makes a lot on the balance, the way it looks in the neighborhood. Okay, so to get that, the 10-foot was more applicable than having a 10-foot forward into the front. Another thing is the existing alleyway does have a lot of structures that are well within 10 foot. And those are existing. They've been there for a long time. Okay? And so this one would not be out of place. Okay? It would fit in actually pretty good. Okay? And that's about it.
Thank you.
Thank you
Okay.
very much. All right, then.
We have one more.
Oh, please.
Hi, Nils Hasse, 124 Shattuck Street. I live on the alleyway. I have the 3-car garage on that. It's within the 10 feet, probably 9 feet, I guess, from the setbacks. There's also a house on the side of Shattuck Street and the alley that's right on the property line, probably been there since 1920. My house is built in 1926. I just added on to the existing 1-car garage that was there, that was already there. And also the house on Pineapple and Spring Bayou, they have a garage there that's probably right on the property line. So there's really, this is kind of like a no-brainer here.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay. If there are no further discussion, then we will go for a motion.
Motion to approve.
Do we have a second? We have a motion to approve. Do we have a second?
I do.
Oh, you do. Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Okay, then, roll call.
Mr. Davis,
Yes.
Ms. Rich,
Yes.
Mr. Eisner,
Yes.
Mr. Burris,
Yes.
Mr. Urbowski.
Yes. Congratulations. Enjoy your new pool. Okay, now we're going to application number 21-54, variance to reduce the required side street yard setback, location 1440 Meyer Lane. Yes.
All right. Okay, This property, again, is located off of Meyer Lane. It's zoned R100. There's really a mixture of single-family zoning districts within this immediate area. There is an existing right-of-way, which is Villa Street. It is unimproved, that runs along this subject property. The applicant is looking to construct a two-car carport on the west side of her existing home. She's proposing a setback variance. It's a side street setback variance of 1 foot, which is less than the required 15 feet. So look at the provided survey. The area shown in blue is where the carport would be located. The applicant currently does not have any access onto Meyer Lane. She currently gets to her property through Villa Street, the unimproved right-of-way. With the approval of a carport, she would be adding a driveway to connect to Meyer Lane. The applicant has indicated that there are several large trees in the backyard, which are shown on the site plan. In addition to these 3 large trees that she's highlighted, there's also a lot of vegetation in the entirety of the backyard, as well as a topography change. This property is also served by septic, which is located in the rear of the home. This is similar to one of the earlier cases we heard, that there is sewer service available. They'll likely need to connect to sewer in the future. As I mentioned, there is a 40-foot unimproved right-of-way, which is Villa Street, along the western property line. The applicant did meet with the city's technical review committee to discuss the possibility of vacating that right-of-way. That would negate the need for a variance request. The city indicated that although there is no pavement in that right-of-way, they do have some utilities, so they'd like to maintain it, so we're not in favor of vacating the right-of-way. Just zooming out a little bit, Villa Street, that right-of-way connects between Meyer Lane and Lake Tarpon Avenue to the south. The green line indicates where there is pavement and it's improved. The red area is where it's unimproved, which is along the subject property. This is a Google Street View image of the existing home, and this is where the proposed carport location is proposed. The applicant provided some pictures of the vegetation. It might be a little dark here on this screen, but shows some of the existing large trees as well as the topography change. This image here is, again, probably a little difficult to see on this screen, but shows kind of the higher point of the backyard that goes down to the lower point of the backyard with some vegetation. And then just to show you some of the tree canopy, I provided an aerial photograph here for you. And with that, I can take any questions.
Okay, we're going over here. Any questions of the city staff? Mr. Davis, Mr. Boris?
No.
Oh, okay, Ms. Rich, Mr. Eisner. Really? Okay, then we're going to go to the applicant. Is the applicant here?
David Hugh, representing Miss Kimberly.
Okay, sir, could you repeat that, please?
My name is David Uke. I'm representing Miss Kimberly. She's in Indiana today.
Okay, thank you.
Simply put, she's just trying to get a carport to make it similar to the homes in the neighborhood.
Okay. Do we have any questions of the applicant?
I do not.
Mr. Boris? No? Ms. Rich? Mr. Eisner?
Then what color paint it's gonna be, I really don't know, I'm just kidding.
Okay, do we have anyone in the audience that would like to speak on this? Seeing none, we're going to go for a motion.
Motion to approve.
Oh, yeah, Zoom? Anybody out there?
Still no one in attendance, sir.
Right. Any emails, whatnot?
No.
Not even any whatnot. Okay, going for a motion.
Mr. Burris,
Motion to
Mr.
approve.
Burris. Motion to approve. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
And we have a second. Roll call.
Mr. Davis?
Yes.
Miss Rich?
Yes.
Mr. Eisner?
Yes.
Mr. Burris?
Yes.
Mr. Urbowski?
Yes. Give her a phone call, man.
Thank you very much.
Have a good night.
Thank you.
Number 6, wow, I was supposed to announce that that's not happening. So if anybody was here for that, I deeply apologize. You waited all this time to find out it is not. At least I remembered the roll call this time. Okay. So we're going to number 7, application number 21-56, variance to increase the allowable floor area ratio, location 121 East Tarpon Avenue.
Okay, the subject property is located on the north side of East Tarpon Avenue. It's in the heart of our downtown. This property, as well as all surrounding properties, are located within the city's special area plan. The applicants are here today requesting an increase to the allowable floor area ratio within the T5B transit zone, which I'll go into a little bit more detail on that here in a minute. They're permitted a maximum floor area ratio of 1.25, and they are proposing a 1.9 FAR. They are looking to construct a two-story building addition and covered deck on the back side of the existing building. For those of you that may not be familiar with what floor area ratio is, I thought I would give you a brief explanation and hopefully not completely confuse you, but I'll try my best. But it essentially is the measurement of the building's floor area in relationship to the size of the lot or parcel. Basically, once you do the FAR calculation, it represents the maximum square footage that you're allowed to build on a property. So a simple example, if you have a 10,000 square foot lot, it has a 1.0 permitted FAR, you're allowed to have a total of 10,000 square feet of gross building area. That 10,000 square feet could be built as one story, or you can break it up to two 5,000 square foot floors. You just can't exceed that maximum number. FAR is used to control essentially intensity of development in a given area. It tells you how big a building you can have. So going back to our request, this is a conceptual drawing that was provided by the applicant just to represent the footprint changes. The area shown in the darkest colored green represents the existing building footprint. It is a two-story building. The gross floor area for both of those stories is just under 6,500 square feet. The existing FAR is 0.9. The two lighter shaded green areas are the proposed addition and the proposed deck. Both of those are proposed to be at 2 stories. The resulting total building square footage would be 13,500 square feet, and that is a 1.9 FAR. This was also a conceptual drawing that's not drawn to scale of the proposed interior layout for the property. They are proposing this property to be a mixed use with a food and beverage use on the ground story, and they are shared office space on the upper story. So as I mentioned, this property is located in the city's special area plan. The special area plan boundary is shown on both of these maps. It's the black dashed line. The special area plan is a policy document that helps to guide the development and future redevelopment of the properties within that boundary. The sister document to the special area plan is the SMART code, and the SMART code is basically your development regulations. It provides the specific development standards for properties. So maybe a comparison would be the special area plan is your comprehensive plan, and then the SMART code is your land development code for this particular area. The special area plan, which is the map here on the left side of the screen, is broken up into 10 different character districts. The subject property is located within the downtown district, which is outlined in red, and you may or may not see the little tiny star, but that's where the subject property is. The SMART code is broken up into several different transect zones, which is the map on the right-hand side. And this further breaks down those character districts and provides specific development regulations for those properties. Important to note that there can be several different transect zones within any given character district and vice versa. Jumping back to the character districts, their main purpose is to provide general use allowances as well as setting your max densities and intensities, which is your FAR. So these are both excerpts from both of those documents. The one on the left-hand side is from our special area plan. This is specifically the downtown table about the general use allowances as well as the floor area ratio and density. And I know you can't read all this information on here, but essentially the special area plan allows a maximum FAR in the downtown character district of 1.25. However, there is a special allowance for properties that are fronting Tarpon Avenue between Pinellas Avenue and Ring Avenue. That special allowance allows for those properties to have a 2.0 FAR. When you look at the SMART code, which is a table on the right-hand side, in the T5B district, which is what we're referring to, it allows a maximum floor area ratio of 1.25. The SMART code does not reference that special allowance for the properties fronting Tarpon Avenue. So it is the intent as we move forward and we make revisions to the SMART code to make sure that those special allowances are captured for consistency in the SMART code, but unfortunately for this case, they're not, which is why they're here today. This is a different type of variance than you're used to. It is an FAR adjustment. There is a different set of criteria. There's 9 different standards, which I have out here for your reference up on the screen, and they're also outlined in your staff report. With that, I'd be happy to answer questions.
Okay, Ms. Rich, please.
When was the special area plan developed? What year, do you know?
I want to say 2010, 2011?
More,
2011, or 2010,
And was the SMART code after that or before that?
at the same time.
Same time?
Yes. Yeah, they were written hand in hand together. Mhm.
And the other question I had was on the site plan that you submitted, where it shows the back part in the lighter green. That's not it currently? You're saying
Correct.
that's how they want it to be?
Right, that's representing the addition area, so.
I guess I was just, because it's showing like a fountain and some other things.
Right.
But is that currently a fountain there?
I don't know if it's actually, yes, I don't know if it's after.
Okay, because that's what I was thinking, that's how it is now, not, that's just the.
Correct.
The area that we're talking about.
Yes, so they took
Okay.
the existing survey of the property, and then they shaded in the footprints of the
Okay.
additions for
Yeah,
that.
okay, I just wanted to make sure, I was like, I think that part's there, that's not what they're wanting to do. The
Yes.
other pictures are what they're wanting to do. Okay, thank you.
Okay, Mr. Davis, any questions?
No, sir.
Mr. Boris?
No.
Mr. Eisner?
Ms. Keen, I had here on my first page where it says the applicants are proposing a 2-story addition, which exceeds the maximum. So I, of course, wrote, why isn't this changed to 2.0? And then, of course, I read further and saw that it is in the process of being changed. Because why I bring this up is we have a lot of different types of variances that cross this board, and I want to compliment you because a lot of times we just get the same type of variances over and over again, and it doesn't get changed, and that creates a problem. On page 2, number 5, it says the SMART code only allows for a maximum FAR of 125 in the T5B Transit zone, et cetera. And my question is, why not? What is the issue with that? Why do we have that code in there?
Why do we have the 1.25?
Yes.
I can't speak exactly why 1.25 was the number chosen, but essentially, if you look at the SMART code, you'd see that several of the other transit zones have a range of density because, like I said, some of the character districts and transit zones will overlap, so they may have different allowances. It's very similar to how we treat our land use. Our underlying land use sets a density allowance, but then we have our zoning that might be slightly different than what that density allowance is. So it's very similar. Unfortunately, it just was missed when that was originally written, that it didn't capture some of those special allowances that were put in the special area plan that really, specifically geared towards the intent of the development of those areas, specifically along Tarpon Avenue.
Because, when you read that whole number 5, they almost contradict each other. That's why, I'm looking at it. You agree with that?
Yeah, exactly that. So
Exactly.
we know the inconsistency as well.
Yes. So my last word to this is thank you. I'm glad you're correcting these things as we go.
You're welcome.
So I have no further questions of staff.
So then we go to the applicant. Would you like to make a presentation?
Good evening, Katie Cole with the law firm of Hill Ward Henderson representing the applicant. Ms. Keene did an amazing job recapping the evidence that was included in the application as well as her staff report, and we concur. I did just want to speak a little bit just to highlight a couple things that she included as evidence in the report, but I think were important. Besides the inconsistency between the plan and the code, this is consistent with many of the other buildings on Tarpon Avenue. The applicant knows that it will be moving forward to the Historic Preservation Board in any renovations or construction that goes on here. But my client is the contract purchaser of this building, and this was really the first step. If they could even do an addition, it was going to be the difference of bringing a business to downtown Tarpon or not. So we're happy to answer any questions. I'm happy to tell you a little bit more about the project, but I also know that this was a speedy meeting for you all, so I don't want to delay it. So with that, we'd respectfully request your approval based on the evidence in the record.
Any questions to my left?
I do not.
Questions to my right? Yes, Ms. Rich.
Just clarification from us, or for someone, maybe the staff. So the variance, though, isn't contingent on what type of business moves in there, right? So it's, even though you've brought this nice package, it could be something completely different, because the variance is just the spatial.
Just the floor
Thank
area.
you. I just wanted, because I know some other things you had said that the drawing then was carried over to the building.
Right.
and-
Yeah, this is specific to the floor area ratio. And then just for some clarification too, say for some reason this doesn't go forward, it does run with the land, but variances would expire after 2 years.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Eisner.
Well, you made the offer, so I would love to hear a little bit more about what the plan
Sure.
is for this.
Sure. My client is a company called Cohatch out of the Ohio area, and they do co-working space, and it's a wonderful program. I know the city has looked at other co-working space in downtown, and this is an opportunity for a private business to bring it in. They partner with a brewery that is a restaurant, food and beverage service, and so the space will be a mixed-use space. It would provide open food and beverage service in the evenings, but then during the day it would operate on the second floor and portions of the first floor as co-working space. There's private offices as well as conference rooms available. Here's a floor plan that shows a little bit. You can see the existing exterior wall as compared to a proposed, and really the proposed addition is to add additional offices. Cohatch is a really interesting co-working concept, in my opinion, not being their lawyer, not their marketing person, but you join the company and then you can utilize their buildings and their offices all around the country and the world. So as opposed to just signing up for a single office in Tarpon Springs, it may be that a business person who's a member of a San Francisco Cohatch comes to do business in Tarpon Springs, and while they're officing here would office from this building. So it's in my opinion as well, seeing a lot of projects, it's a very interesting way to utilize office space and activate first floor, especially along Tarpon Avenue. Giving the food and beverage service on the first floor allows it to be interactive throughout the day and the evening, as opposed to having an office just close its door and walk away, which offices are permitted use on Tarpon Ave. And so this allows it to be activated, gives that first floor option. So to your point, Ms. Rich, it's not guaranteed that this would all go through, but certainly this is the first step. So Cohatch also specializes and prides itself in repurposing historic structures. So we're working on a couple of projects now. We're in permitting in St. Petersburg, working on a plan in West Tampa. So this would be the third in the Bay Area. So.
How many offices do you plan on having up on the second floor, do you know?
I don't know. It's going to depend on the floor plan. I think the floor plan that we provided had around 30 individual offices, but that will fluctuate depending on fire requirements, the kitchen size, venting, et cetera.
Because it is a large addition that you're putting on.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, when it's all said and done, the building will be quite large.
It'll be about twice the size of what it is.
Yes.
So it's 2 of what it is today.
And I've been in that building, so I know it's large just as it is right now.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you. I
You're
appreciate
welcome.
that.
30.
Yeah, 30.
About 5.
How was the parking taken care of in that?
There's no parking requirement in the downtown for that
Fascinating.
particular district.
Okay, anyone from the public like to comment on this?
Again, these are just schematics. I'd have to pull it up on the plan, so I'm not sure exactly. Yeah, it could be.
Okay,
At
Mr.
least
Jump.
downstairs.
Anybody in the ethers out there wishing to speak?
No, sir, we do not have anyone in attendance.
Kim, do we have any emails, letters,
Nope. No opposition or anything.
pictograms? Okay, so we are going to go for, if any further discussion? We are going for a motion.
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call.
Mr. Davis?
Yes.
Ms. Rich?
Yes.
Mr. Eisner?
Of course, yes.
Mr. Burris?
Yes.
Mr. Abowski?
Yes, congratulations. Okay, next we go to approval of minutes, April 28, 2021. Do we have a motion?
Motion to approve?
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Roll call.
Ms. Rich?
Yes.
Mr. Eisner?
Yes.
Mr. Burris?
Yes.
I'm sorry. Mr. Davis?
Yes.
Mr. Abowski?
Yes. Staff comments.
I didn't have any comments, but I'll just mention one thing. Mr. Eisner mentioned on the last case about how it's nice to see that we found an inconsistency and we're going through revisions. Just so you know, like I've mentioned in the past, we are going to be going through a process to do some revisions to our land development code. And one thing we do look at are the past variances that came before the board and kind of the track record of those. So those will be taken into consideration when we do those revisions. That's a little bit longer process than the SMART code, but we do look at that. So other than that, I have no more comments.
Well, your hard work is noticed, and we compliment you.
Thank you. Really appreciate it. Thanks.
Board comments to my left.
All set. Great meeting.
To my right. Okay, I believe I speak for the board that we all wish our vice chair, Jackie Turner, speedy recovery. And with that, at 8:26, we are adjourned.
Done.
Thank you.
Very good.